I think we need to start right at the beginning, right at the title card, where something different shows than what we would expect. Spider-Man for the PS1 was developed by Neversoft Studios, the same studio that did the Tony Hawk series. You'll quickly notice that name has been replaced by something called Vicarious Visions, that later became Blizzard Albany. Now you might think maybe some of the development team moved over, and that's why they decided to switch to that, while the main team still worked on Tony Hawk. But from what I could find, that is not the case. Vicarious Visions is popular for porting over games to handheld systems, including Spider-Man 1 for the PS1 and most of Neversoft's games over to the Game Boy. Now you might be asking yourself, why does this matter? I like the game. It plays the exact same, plus it had some updates. You could actually go onto the street level sometimes. I will give it, this is a really cool start. They do it almost like a this episode, where it shows what happened in the last game in a little flashback. The game itself starts out with a pretty cool cutscene, trying to portray Electro as a menacing villain. But let's be honest, it has the gargantuan shadow of Carnage-infused Doc Ock to compete with. The game starts off with Spider-Man talking to Beast instead of Black Cat, which is a choice. I love Beast, but it's strange, a little strange, not gonna lie. And whatever the hell this was, we get to venture the city streets for the first time, which was something that was lacking in the first game. Other than that, most of the mechanics are still the same. You still swing onto the air, and we still have this god-awful camera. First thing you notice is, while the first game did have chore missions, this game seems to have a lot of them. And in the next stage, oh wait, we're back to not having a ground level, except for now we don't have the poison gas, even the cool aesthetic of the poison gas, that green background to explain away why there isn't a street view. And look at that, more busy work. You have to destroy every single turret before you can go to the hangar. Let's get into what I think made that first Spider-Man game so good, and it was those boss fights, those villains. And we start off with Shocker. Yeah, Shocker's cool. Fight is overall fine. It's very similar to the Scorpion fight, except for there's a timer based on the barrels instead of you having to save J. Jonah. The bar ends, the whole place explodes, more fire shows up the longer you play. But the thing is the camera angle is shown as its worst in this stage because you have to pick up the barrels and you can't see the barrels because they're not in the right camera angle. Well, the second section of the first game had the sense of urgency with that helicopter. It was flying around and shooting missiles at you. This game does it a little different way. I still think this is an okay stage, even though it's a very busy work mission. Have to find everybody and kill them type deal. But it's another ground stage. You have these guys, they have keys, and you have to stop this bomb from exploding. It's an overall okay stage. If you ask me, I still prefer the helicopter shooting missiles at you, though. Cutscene here was the first of a couple cutscenes that they had to change and or cut because of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Makes sense why they would have to cut a cutscene that has an exploding plane. It wasn't a huge change though, since instead the plane just doesn't explode. Like pretty much all the stages before it, this game has become Takeout Turret Simulator. And the writing team really messed up because this game is full of planes. This mission is super stressful until you figure out how to do it. A lot of crash planes. This game was supposed to come out on September 18th, 2001 and had to be pushed back till October the 18th, a whole month, just to attempt to fix this all. You'll completely understand when you see what the last stage is. Next section of the game has some basic puzzle levels, very similar to the sewer levels of the first game, except for you're at a train yard this time. The Sandman fight reminds me a lot of the Mysterio fight in the first game, where there are a lot of cool things about it, but there are a lot of annoying things about it. It's an overall good fight. I think a lot of it is just the hardware capability, making it more difficult than it should be. The true hardest part of this boss fight is navigating Spider-Man to actually get on the back of the train. I got on top of the train and it literally game overed me one time. You have to get on the little, like, inside the train. After a quick little run through an office stage, you come to the best boss in the whole game, let's be honest. It's, oh wow. Great. Spider-Man has such a great rogues gallery, and we get Hammerhead. You just rip his gun away and punch him. That's about it. He charges at you kind of like Rhino. Yeah. He's Rhino, but worse. We could have had, like, Kraven, Morbius, all these cool options. I know they don't want to do the goblins, but Hobgoblin maybe. I don't know anything other than Hammerhead. The whole last part of the game is pretty much puzzles galore. There's lasers, robots shoot at you, all types of stuff, you know. Even though they've already shown up a couple times, I felt like I should mention here that there is an ice and a electric web cartridge, very similar to the fire web cartridge that's in the first game. This whole section, you're trying to search for Kurt Connors, who has been turned into the lizard again, so you can try to figure out what Electro is doing. This section feels super time-wasty, just like a lot of the sections in this game, I hate to say. You have to go through sections of doors to open other doors to make these little force fields go down to get up to the top. Yeah, I don't know. Next section is a climbing section where stuff shocks you, there's more lasers, all types of stuff. It's super... yeah. After you reach the top, you finally can come into Dr. Connor's office. You make this little serum using the computer, and then you can fight him. If you don't use the serum, he's invincible. Also, one of the best little cutscene boss fight start things ever, where he just grabs your ass and throws you across the room. Just because I'm annoyingly bad at this boss fight doesn't mean this is a bad boss fight. I actually think it's probably one of the best boss fights of this game. I just think in this game in particular, even more than the first, they did a lot of things that the camera just couldn't handle, and the controls were just way too wonky for. This game, even more than the first, would really benefit from modern camera controls, like a remake, even though I still think the story is nowhere near as compelling as the first one. So the whole boss fight is just picking up these little serum web cartridges, shooting at them, throwing the vials if you want. That does more damage, but half the time you miss by the time you're able to turn around and throw it at them. Or you can just hit him and then hit him. That's probably the easier play. I didn't do that. I did until the end. And we have returned to our natural state of Turret Destroyer Simulator. The second Sandman boss fight is what I wish the rest of the game was. This feels like the quality of the first game, but it's just this fight. You have a clear mechanic to kill Sandman, you turn on the water valve, it gets him wet, you have to make sure he gets into the water for it to work, and then you beat him up. It's not hard, but you can't do it the regular way. You have to do it this way, and I like that. It might be incredibly telegraphed, but who cares? At least it's Spider-Man figuring out an alternative way to beat his villain that is clearly stronger without that alternative method. Somehow Electro has the power now to use his electricity to animate suits of armor. And you have to fight him and then grab the leftover corpse thing of the suit and throw them at this center thing to blow it up. The next thing is climbing up this long cylinder wall that electricity comes down from. Once you get it down, it's not super hard. After you reach the top, you get the first of the two Electro fights. This one, this is one of my big problems with the game, is this fight is chaotic. Until you figure out you can just web line up to one of the props and then kick him until he dies on this fight, it's just straight chaos. And there's probably other ways to beat this fight, but I don't see them. Now you might be asking yourself, how are you going to make Electro as memorable as you being chased as the whole place is blowing up around you by Carnage Doc Ock breathing down your neck? That suspense, how are you going to even match that, let alone beat it? And this is what happened. You hand Electro to the gym to save the doctor, and he becomes God Electro. And then you see the cutscene, and it is the Twin Towers. Now, clearly none of this made the end of the game. They made this like weird amalgamation where the two buildings are fused together to make it not look like the Twin Towers. They didn't do a huge change. They only had a month to do this, so they could only do what they could do to get all this plane hijacking, all this thing that they've infused into this game. It was like it was one of the main parts of the game. They got rid of all of it because it just didn't work anymore. They'd kind of put all their eggs in this one basket that was this final epic fight scene on the Twin Towers, the highest place, this big show, this spectacle that you're fighting on this sky, these dual skyscrapers, and then you get the news 7 days before launch that this awful tragedy has occurred, and you have made so much of your game around this awful tragedy that will only be remembered now as this awful tragedy, and there's no way you can release the game in the state that it's in. Now, none of us as kids knew this, unless you were old enough to, figure it out. Honestly, I don't think the spectacle of if this hadn't occurred, I don't think the spectacle of you fighting on the Twin Towers, at least for my child mind, would have really changed the outcome. That this is a lackluster ending to a lackluster game. Destroys the things in the middle near the antenna, so when he does go to charge up, it destroys itself, and then you kind of just sit here and let him shock himself to death. He shocks himself, you punch him, and rinse and repeat until he's dead, and that is the end of the game.
This goes to show that good wins because evil is dumb.
I really do think this bookends the game, but instead of going right into a cutscene, it tells me that I have a picture unlocked in the portfolio. Like, I fucking care.
Ugh, I need a new agent. Full house, aces over kings. I win again.
I was never any good at poker.
Oh, so close, so close! If it weren't for Spider-Man, I'd be a god now!
Would you shut up?
No.
You know any other games? All I know is poker.
Nah, but maybe they know a few. Hey! You guys know how to play Go Fish?
While it's fine, even the last cutscene, and the best part probably of the cutscene is the nod back to the first crew, the rogue gallery that we're missing from the first game. If you're still with me, then you clearly know that I don't like this game. I didn't have any fun playing it. There were certain parts gave me fond memories of the first game, but for most points, it was a chore. I think one of the main issues in this game wasn't the fact that they had to change the story. I don't think them not having to change the story would have fixed the game. I think what would have fixed the game is tightening up the story and making it something we care about. And some people might care about this. I might be a minority here, but I just couldn't get invested into Electro being the big bad. And looking at the end again, in the first game, you have a whole crew of Spider-Man's friends showing up to pick him up. Black Cat that's helped you throughout the game. You see Beast in this game, but for what? At the very beginning to help you out? And in the training stuff, you can mess with a couple more X-Men, but in the actual main storyline, the main game, you saw Daredevil, Punisher, Black Cat, Captain America at the end, Venom was on your side. There's so many people in that first game, and then the second game, they're like, nah, we have this infinite group of crazy heroes to pull from with the Marvel Universe, and we're just not gonna do it because why would we? Let's just make the game. It just frustrates me because even if it was done, this was going to be the last game because then the movies came out and we were going to get game adaptations of the movies because they just sell like hotcakes. But this could have been just as good as the first one if the same team at Neversoft might have worked on it. But yeah, that's why I think I have to give this the rating I'm going to give it. Now, let me go over my rating system. If you haven't watched any of my videos, we have amazing, spectacular, great, good, nostalgic, then trash. And I think I have to give this nostalgic because I did love this game. And I know a lot of people loved this game when they were kids, but I just don't think it holds up anywhere near as close as good as the first one does. But yeah, tell me, did you like this game when you were a kid as much as I did? Or did you always know that this is how it was? Or do you still love the game? You could still love the game. It just doesn't resonate with me anymore. But listen, if you like the video, even if you didn't like the video, give me a like, give me a subscribe, please. You know, I'm trying to get up there in subscribers. Please subscribe. I'll beg a little bit. And if you want, watch the other videos. I have 3 more Spider-Man videos on this page with other Spider-Man videos you might really like. Other Spider-Man games you played. See if I agree with how you feel about the games. But thanks again, and thanks for watching.